Thanks for joining us on Not Boring CEs, where we don't think you should be bored to death while getting your continuing ed. Keep listening here, then hop over to notboringces.com to get all your online CE credits. All right, y'all, let's get to learning. Cea Rubin has been sharing body-centered therapies for over a decade. As a clinical social worker and somatic psychotherapist, licensed massage and bodywork therapist, craniosacral therapy practitioner, and yoga teacher specializing in yoga for trauma and therapeutics, Cea has learned that if we could think our way into healing, we already would have healed. Cea specializes in helping people trust themselves, their perceptions, and their decisions, as well as supporting people in feeling safe in their bodies and resolving persistent somatic symptoms. She's served many individuals and groups in private practice, intensive outpatient programs, hospitals, and inpatient settings, and she's worked with people from childhood through elderhood. She understands how to meet people where they are. Welcome, Cea. Welcome back to Not Boring CEs. I'm here today with Cea Rubin. We are going to be talking about the intersection of physical and emotional anatomies. I'm excited about this conversation, and prepping for this, Cea and I got to have a great conversation where I learned a lot. So I'm excited for y'all to learn a lot and for me to learn more because this one's a much longer convo. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah. So let's start off first with just kind of the basics. Can you gently usher us into some of the terminology we're going to use, some of the ideas that we might need to be familiar with for the rest of our conversation to make sense?
Yes, what a great starting place. So, I think as what I'm accustomed to is as therapists, we tend to enter the human system through thoughts and through emotions. And sometimes we leave out what's happening in the same moment, which is the physical body.
Mhm.
So we have a thought or we have an emotion, there's a simultaneous phenomenon happening in our physical bodies. We can feel it in our heart rate increasing, in the chemicals and the hormones. We also, sometimes we're aware of it, sometimes we're not. There's a posture and emotion that happens in the body simultaneously with an emotion or with a thought. So in our culture in the West, we have done this really brilliant thing of isolating things to better understand them. But
Mhm.
the not so brilliant thing is we forgot to put it all back together.
Mhm.
And we see that in our mental health practices, we've to a degree isolated it to really understand it, which is such a beautiful thing and so important in healing and in coming into thriving. We have to remember to bring it back into the whole, because if we just address the emotional distress or the emotional unease without resolving the simultaneous struggle in the body, we can keep getting pulled back over and over again into those patterns because its manifestation in the body is still here.
Right. So it's interesting because I think it's kind of like a running joke on social media, for instance, this idea of therapists being like, and where do you feel that in your body? It's always like a soft voice therapist, right?
Yeah, I have
Um,
clients who make fun of me with that, and it's yeah.
yeah. And it's a good question, even though we giggle about it. But I think that there are a lot of us therapists who might ask that question, but then not really know what to do with the answer.
Yes. So I'd love to expand on that question of where do you feel it in your body? Because so many people struggle with feeling their bodies. They
Mhm.
might be thinking emotions or thinking feelings, or it's really unsafe to come to the body. So I often like to ask, where do you feel it in or around your body? Or does it kick you out of your body? Because all of that is going to be great information of, is this emotion something that is at this point so overwhelming or dysregulating that it's not safe to be in the present moment because our body
Mhm.
is in the present moment.
I love that because I think about myself and I have felt like a balloon head most of my life.
Mhm.
Just I'm very good at being in my head and being kind of divorced from my body. It's just the way that I've done life thus far for the most part. And so whenever a therapist has asked me like, where do you feel that in your body? I'm kind of like, I don't know. And it took me a long time to be like, oh, I feel that in my stomach. I feel that in my heart. Like
Mhm.
the question is good because it makes you actually check in and it makes me go from this bobblehead, like balloon head to like somebody who actually does have something going on from the neck down.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're a whole being.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can relate to a degree with the balloon head and how rewarded we are for thoughts and being fast paced in that way.
Hmm.
The other, if we could go back to that other part of your question, you said, what do we do next? Someone says, I feel it in my stomach or I feel it in my heart. Cool. Let's keep going.
Right. Noted.
There are so many different next steps we can take. Um, that is an invitation from that person's psyche and system of, hey, come with me in this pathway. Let's open this door together. I've offered this to you. Okay, it's in my stomach. The first step I like to do is to get familiar with it. And as therapists, we are so great at this. We're fantastic at rapport building and building trust. And so we're doing the same thing with the body. This is where parts work can be great as well because
Hmm.
it can be a part speaking through the body or manifesting through um, physical symptoms. So we just want to build rapport first. Okay,
Hmm.
and our body communicates differently than our thinking mind. It might come in words, but it might be sensations or images. It might be qualities. Um, so we want to give a lot of space for the body to communicate however it wants to. Doesn't always have to be in sensation, though that is often how the body likes to communicate. So just being curious, witnessing, having that compassionate curiosity.
Hmm.
Mm. And
Yeah.
then that can tell you where to go from there.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, I was just having this conversation the other day. This is taking us a little bit into left field, but it's relevant. Um,
I love a good rabbit hole. Um,
okay.
yeah.
But we were talking about how we don't have friends who are ambitious type A women, 40 and older, who don't have some sort of autoimmune issue.
Mm,
And
yeah.
just thinking about the way the body gets involved there when you've been like you've burned through your adrenals, you've, done so much
Yeah.
to achieve or whatever you found important along the way. And then your body crashes to make you slow down.
Yeah. I'm already hearing all those different layers of the emotions of our place in society and those identities that we occupy and spaces that society allows for us,
Hmm.
um, and just the patriarchal capitalist structure and how challenging that is on a body that is not um, in a non-oppressed group.
Hmm.
I'm curious, when you were talking with your friend, what came up for you in reflecting on those autoimmune challenges?
Well, just thinking of somebody with an autoimmune disease, like, I honestly think the doing everything, I grew up as a Gen Xer. I grew up of a generation where like feminism was taught to us by our moms, but it was from this like, you can do everything. And
Uh-huh.
so we did. We did all the woman's work that we thought was expected of us. We tried to look like Kate Moss. We did everything along the way that felt like both the woman's work and that more masculine, like being business owner kind of thing. Like I have always done business in a masculine way. Um, and I enjoy it and I love it. And I would still do it even if I don't know. It feels like I was wired to do it. I just had to learn to do it in a way that didn't burn me out because I don't like having limits, so I would ignore them.
I so, I so relate.
Yeah.
What you're sharing is reminding me of some of Brene Brown's work,
Hmm.
with vulnerability and having that role of the woman who does it all with a smile on her face.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing in the context of our conversation, um, of how that can dissociate us from the truth in our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And so, with autoimmune struggles, there are sometimes there's often patterns that are present across people. And also at the same time, everybody's system is unique. And so I'd be curious to go in and listen to that because it's something physical. We can touch on it either through the psyche or physically with really gentle touch. And if
Mhm.
we can connect with it, we can dialogue with it. And
Hmm.
are so great with that. And so there's a saying, the body never lies. And so we want to find the truth in the body and what the autoimmune struggle is trying to communicate. You said before, it's like the adrenals are just exhausted. And so the body's like, I'm freaking done. I'm tired.
Hmm.
It can be almost like a defense mechanism of like, man, I need some more guards up. So it might be putting up those walls.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so you may already be tapping into like, man, this is the work that we do with the psyche, which is a little more air like and ether like if we're thinking about it in states of matter.
Hmm.
But when it's in the body, we have something really tangible that we can work with, something we can point to, we can see it, we can
Hmm.
experiment with it. And I find that oftentimes that lets people digest it in a really efficient way because it's
Hmm.
right here, we can touch it.
So this is kind of making me giggle a little because it's so true. I'm thinking about how in the therapist world, like the very serious therapist world, um, keeping it separated and it all being about emotion and thoughts is like it's one way of doing it. And often those folks look at the more somatic people as more airy fairy, right?
Yes.
And how like what's more real than breaking a bone or like your blood test says you're totally messed up or whatever, like
Yeah.
it's interesting how there's a snobbery within our field, and this goes all sorts of directions and around all sorts of different things. It's always going to happen in any sort of field, but there's something that somatic therapists get labeled with that
Uh-huh.
is kind of like the opposite of what's actually happening, which we all know, like the mind body connection, it's all the same thing, right? Like we don't need to connect them, they're already connected.
Yes.
um, yeah, so it's funny that you're talking about like our thoughts, emotions, our psyche being kind of more airy and ethereal almost. And that's what the very serious therapists are focused on.
Totally. Yeah, I'm feeling this like zooming out happening and my social work mindset comes in of, man, what's happening within our moment in history and in our culture where we're prizing really digging into thoughts and emotions as the serious stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I learned one definition of oppression is a difficulty in breathing or suffocating the breath is one way we can look at it.
Hmm.
So, I wonder if it's kind of built into our systems of wanting people disembodied because it can be really disempowering,
Hmm.
not connected with your body. Because if the body doesn't lie, our truths are in our body. It can keep people out of the body. Or if the people who are wanting power over can keep people out of the body, they get to keep, the power, in quotes.
Right. That's so juicy.
Mm.
Let's talk some about this idea that like it's all in your head. Um, I'm thinking about it from this perspective of I hear it a lot with around parents saying it about their kids of like, oh, it's all in her head. That's why she's just nervous about it. It's just like it's almost dismissive, a
Yeah.
dismissive way of handling I don't know, like a nervous tummy or something like that, right?
Mhm.
Um, I heard that recently, which is why it's coming to mind. And this idea that it's all in your head versus it's all in your body. Um, the idea that it's like we're talking about separating out head versus body, but I'm also thinking about just the terminology of it's all in your head and how there's this sense of like So it's not valid or relevant if it's just in your head, as if there's not a very clear connection to what goes on in your body. Am I
Mhm.
making sense?
Yes, and I'm hearing some of the things that we've touched on already of you saying before, like mind body connection. It's
Mhm.
already one. We don't need to connect them. And
Yeah.
so this is making me giggle now of the dismissiveness of it's all in your head. And in the therapist world, we're prizing being in the head.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, so
So we're screwed, basically. No.
um I mean, I come down to like, let's come to the foundations of our practice, which
Hmm.
is that compassionate curiosity, validation, what we're
Hmm.
here, it's here for a reason, and it's just here, period. So let's get curious about it. Um, I wonder about the projections of, oh, it's all in your head. What would happen if we slowed down and said, huh, what are you feeling in your belly?
Hmm.
Maybe we have a really sweet bonding conversation with our child that's like, oh, that stomach ache is I am really nervous because this thing happened at school.
Hmm.
Someone said something mean to me that maybe we wouldn't have gotten to hear if we didn't allow the tummy ache or the somatic symptom to be in the conversation.
Right.
So it's like, oh, it's all in your head. It's dismissing this other way of being in conversation.
Hmm.
As humans, we're so used to being in conversation with the cognitive mind and with words. And then maybe we're talking and, oh, something's happening in my shoulder. That wants to be in the conversation too. It's just going to look a different way.
Hmm.
Oh, it's all in your head is leaving out something that wants to be part of the conversation in a way that we just haven't been used to in a lot of our culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
There's so much
interesting.
more to this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about kind of the felt sense understanding of the physical body, of emotions, of mental health. Can we talk some about that?
Mhm. So for therapists, I always recommend having your own practice, knowing what it feels like in our bodies.
Hmm.
Because we all know if we're with a client and we're just saying something that doesn't have experience or it doesn't have a foundation, our clients pick up on it. They're like,
Yeah.
it's fishy. Yeah, and that can turn into that can get dicey pretty fast because there's that power differential, and clients can be like, "Gosh, is it me?" When it's like, no, the therapist needs that felt sense experience of, oh, this is where I feel it in my body. This is how I respond when my body is feeling sick.
Hmm.
My body needs to just move position in session. Mhm.
Yeah.
So that I always recommend starting with the safety and resourcing for
Hmm.
therapists and for clients, having that felt sense of, oh, it's safe to be here. Oh, there's vitality in my thighs. There's a spaciousness around my heart. And so in having a felt sense, we're creating a map for ourselves.
So it's interesting. As you said, there's spaciousness around my heart. I like felt it in a way that if you hadn't said it, I wouldn't have noticed it. But as you said, it was almost like there was a swirl around that I was like, oh, it is spacious. It feels good. And I think even just bringing awareness to the body, um, like you didn't ask me how my heart was feeling. You just threw something out there and just bringing uh, like a therapist bringing in ideas of what could be going on in your body could, without planting an idea, but just bringing it up, how powerful that can be in helping people notice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, can we talk some about like mapping the intersections of the physical and emotional bodies in ways I would I mean, this is going to be like the bulk of the conversation, I suspect, but in ways that people can then take in their practice and implement.
Mhm. Um, so when you're in the room with someone or over Zoom, the body, it's said to be like the low-hanging fruit. And so you can see what's happening inside someone's psyche behind the words with how their body is holding or moving.
Mhm.
If somebody's saying, "Yeah, I feel great," and their foot cannot stop tapping,
Uh-huh.
it gives me an opportunity to get curious about that.
Mhm.
So we're helping our clients create a map of themselves and a deeper self-understanding. And
Mhm.
we also, at the same time, as we're empowering them to make their own map, we have some maps that we can really trust and use. So there are some physical postures that correlate with protective responses. My body already went into a rounding position. So
Mhm.
primal, um, primal posture that happen. Like if I am defensive, I'm going to fight, I'm going to run, or I'm going to shut down, or I'm going to fawn. These muscles are going to go in at the same time.
So those are like your shoulder muscles, your chest muscles, kind of the caving in.
Yes. So it's, if we're getting geeky with the muscles, we
Yeah.
have neck major, which weaves into the sternum and into the front of the arm bone. And so if we're having an emotional experience of shame, those muscles are going to activate at the same time. My upper back is going to round, my arms come forward, my head automatically has to come forward. The front of my belly contracts, my psoas, which is a main stress muscle. It helps to flex the hip, which is like if you're seated, that muscle is
Mhm.
active. My low back overstretches. And then I have a turtle shell for my,
Mhm.
and I'm protecting all of my vulnerable organs.
Mhm.
So if a client comes in and they're like, I have chronic neck pain, my jaw is really tight, I'm getting headaches, my low back hurts. Let's check their posture because all of those are reflections of this rounding forward. When my chest is tight, my neck's out of the integrity, the structural integrity. So it's going to cause neck pain, which radiates into headaches. Low back is overstretching, which causes the pain in the low back or can cause the pain in the low back. So that's a really common correlation or intersection of physical and emotional anatomy, that rounded forward posture.
Mhm.
And we see it in that neck pain, headaches, jaw tension. The jaw tension is really common, especially in women. TMJ, temporomandibular joint dysfunction, is very common if we've been swallowing our words, biting our tongue. We already have these sayings in our culture. And so, in a moment where, man, it's not safe to speak up, or, ooh, I should be polite or be a good girl, whatever it may be, our jaw muscles will contract to literally keep us from speaking.
Mhm.
Tension can build up over time if it can't release. And so then we get that joint dysfunction.
Mhm.
That's another really common intersection.
Yeah. And I think about how, like, that might not happen in your waking hours, right? Like, you might be a clencher or a grinder at night,
Mhm.
and it's like your body processing through everything that it held back all night, or all day. Yeah.
Yeah. You were talking before of that reminded me of the like, it's all in your head, it's all in your body.
Mhm.
If there's a truth that you're experiencing, it's gonna come out somewhere and at some time. So oftentimes it can come out in nighttime or we wake
Mhm.
up with it, but it's not in line with our head's agenda. So we just
Mhm.
push through it.
Yeah.
Muscle. Mhm.
I think about how common that is amongst my clients who have boundary issues, have a really hard time with conflict. Um, I don't know if any of them haven't complained about jaw or neck pain. Um, it's
Yes.
interesting to think through.
Yeah, I love that. It's getting a just a deeper and more compassionate understanding. I felt that description you shared just drop down in my own body.
Hmm.
And so you were saying before, like it's all one. We can access that struggle of it's really hard to have boundaries
Hmm.
through the emotional body and through the physical body. Addressing either one is going to ripple out into the other. And if we can be with both at the right timing for that person, it's going to help that pattern transform.
Hmm.
I feel it in my life of, ooh, my jaw's clenching. Let me check in. Okay, there's a need here that needs a boundary around it.
Hmm.
Access it that way too.
Yeah. Do you ask in your intake about like physical discomfort or pain?
I do, yes. Yeah, I'll
Have, like check boxes or like I was thinking about like massage therapists who have the body outline. Um, like how do you do it in your like written paperwork or is it more in your initial assessment?
it's a combination. So in the written down assessment before the first intake, I'll get information if that person has a menstrual cycle, I'll get information about that because the body changes a lot over the
Hmm.
menstrual cycle. Um, I'll learn about daily and nightly cycles. And then in the initial intake, I'll ask about physical symptoms. I'll check their posture, breath evaluation.
Hmm. What is a breath evaluation like?
So the breath is a physical action.
Hmm.
Our muscles, our tissues, they have to either contract or release to allow more breath in. So I'll just see how somebody's breathing. We might try out breathing into the belly and seeing how much ease or challenge there is there. And that tells a lot about not only what's happening in the body, but also where memories may be held in the body.
Hmm.
So if it's really hard to breathe into the belly, the muscles of the abdominal wall are likely tight, as well as the respiratory diaphragm, which connects all along the bottom of the rib cage. Our heart organ rests on top of it, and really important arteries and vessels also weave through the diaphragm.
Hmm.
So if I was really frightened at some point in my life, for example, and I had to hold my breath, the diaphragm contracted. And if that never got to process or release that breath out, that diaphragm can stay contracted. And so we might see that in the breath evaluation, and it gives really great mapping of at some point we're probably gonna tune into what's happening in the diaphragm. And we can use some of those skills we talked about at the beginning of, you know, we're building rapport here. What are the sensations? Are there colors? Are there textures? Temperature? Can we give that tissue eyes? We can talk with the eyes, and that'll often allow us access to memories. Um, Oftentimes, inner children are hanging out in the body, and so doing that posture evaluation, breath evaluation helps us as therapists see, okay, this is probably where we're going to go.
What are some other common postures or ways of holding ourselves that um, are indications of potential clinical issues or struggles?
Mhm. So we went over two major ones that rounded forward, the jaw clenching. Low back pain is also a really common one with people who have trauma stuck in their systems, um, or are struggling with a lot of stress or mental health distress.
Mhm.
That works with the hip flexors in the front. If they're overactive or tight, then the low back has to compensate by overstretching.
Mhm.
And so we tend to feel pain where we're overstretching
Got it.
with our boundaries too. If I have
Hmm.
boundaries, I'm overstretching in my relationships. It causes me pain in some way.
Hmm.
People come in with low back pain, hip pain, all very common in there's some sort of stress response happening in the body. That's because it's all one is going to have a correlation with mental health and emotions.
Hmm. So I think about like most people coming into therapy for the first time will cop to the fact that they've got some stress or distress going on. How do you then tease out, like they also have, let's say, lower back pain and hip tightness. How do you then tease out and work through what's stored there?
Hmm. I mean, building that safety is first
Hmm.
because it's going to allow that conversation with that area to open up. And oftentimes, when we feel safe, those memories or distress that's stored in the body will feel safe to start speaking up.
Hmm.
And so, if we take a somatic approach, we do what we touched on earlier, which is allowing the body to be in the conversation with cognition. So
Hmm.
maybe we're talking there, say, yeah, I have low back pain. Say, I'm curious about that. Do you mind if we just tune into it a little bit? And what I recommend with people who are just starting with somatic work is people often like to have a timer on it at first because it can be so new. It can feel weird or uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So how long do you want here? How about 5 minutes? So we'll drop in, find safety, and then we can touch into that area and bring it into the conversation, get familiar with it. And then it tends to naturally present itself,
Okay.
especially the more we work with the body. People will notice the sensations or the colors, and then they might be like, man, this really weird thing just happened. I just saw my 5-year-old self, or I just got this memory from this time. That's weird. And they'll dismiss it.
Hmm.
But we'll be like, oh, hey, can we go back to that? What do you see in your 5-year-old self? What are they wearing? Mhm.
So you mentioned colors. Like when I'm imagining like dropping in, how do you guide that as a therapist?
Mhm.
How verbal are you versus giving them time and space to be with on their own? Can you kind of talk us through that process?
Yes. Being grounded in your own body is really important,
Hmm.
not only for safety for the client, but also your own body is going to give you a lot of information of what's happening in their body
Hmm.
because we co-regulate, we mirror each other. So, um, people can have eyes closed or open, whatever allows them to feel safer and have better access dropping in.
Hmm.
And so, if we're starting with um, maybe there's a issue with a boundary. We might start with thoughts if that's the access point. What thoughts are you noticing? Give them time to really see those. Any images, let them watch that in front of them like a movie,
Hmm.
time to see it. And then are you noticing anywhere in or around your body when you see these images? And then they tend to notice, yeah, I feel it right in my throat, right in my lower throat. That's interesting. Can we get familiar with that? Are you noticing any sensations, colors, temperature, elemental qualities? And people tend to have those come up. And if they go blank, we know as therapists, there's something really tender here that's held in what seems like the blankness that the psyche may be protecting from. We really want to slow down there. We really want to build that safety and resourcing, and we can do that so beautifully with the body because our nervous system is there. Clients get a felt experience of safety. It's not just an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have access to sensations, we're really trying to get them familiar with it. So it's not all in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So there might be a shape. There's a lot of questions therapists can ask based on their own intuition, what they're feeling in the room, and that'll be more accessible the more we do our own work. So if there's a shape, we might notice, how deep does it go into your tissue? What effect does it have on your whole body? Sometimes people notice if it's in the throat, whoa, it makes my shoulders round. Wow, I'm in this posture all day long.
Hmm.
Wow, this is a really old sensation and posture. I've been doing this since I was 12 years old. And so from there, we can, there's an opportunity for creativity as well to really let that person find a map for themselves. Maybe there's a sound that goes with it. And maybe that sound could be translated into words that's subconsciously being sent to the person or non-consciously sent.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we can dialogue with that area in the body that we've gotten familiar with. Now it's even more tangible. And that can take us in a lot of ways. And we can use those skills that a lot of us therapists know. Might be parts work. Um, there might be some dream work that comes in, symbolism, being really validating and getting to know what is that part or sensation trying to communicate? Because when we go in there, it's typically trying to serve the person. And oftentimes it doesn't know that it's causing pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, yeah, looked like something clicked.
Yeah, I was thinking about the resourcing piece of it and what that looks like somatically. I don't want to interrupt you, but just when I think of resourcing, I get all like cognitive.
I'm so I'm so curious, what are the cognitive resourcing? Because I wonder if it is already happening in the body. So I'm wondering what.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think about like creating my brain has gone completely blank all of a sudden, but creating kind of like connecting to the people who have loved you unconditionally, like which definitely has a felt sense, right? Like I felt it in my body as I said it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like just thinking about the people who are there for you, for instance, when you're in the midst of working through a hard thing. Or sorry, it's snowing, FYI.
Oh,
um,
it's a snow. Yes.
look out your window. So um working towards like having those things that I'm realizing all of them create that same felt sense of safety as I think through it. But I've always come at them from a cognitive angle of like think about dot dot dot. Um
And if I can jump in there, that's such a fantastic way to enter it because we want to play to people's strengths.
yeah.
Yeah. And so you went in through the cognition and then you noticed, oh, there's a felt sense.
Hmm.
I notice is when we can expand people's awareness and experience of the felt sense, that resource becomes more accessible.
Right.
Bottom up approach is so fruitful. 70% of the information traveling through the nerves goes from the body to the brain.
Hmm.
Percent goes the opposite way. So as therapists, we're missing a lot of opportunity for shifts and transformation when we leave out the body, which is sending 70% of the communication to the brain. So we
Yeah.
can enter in, think about somebody who you feel loved by. And then where do you feel that in your body? And then that's going to reinforce it even more strongly back in
Hmm.
the head.
So when you come at it not cognitively, I'm like, I don't know how to think. How do you how do you create that same felt sense without coming in through the like from the bottom up? How do you do that?
There's a few different ways. I mean, when you're sitting with somebody, um, you can ask them, do you sense anywhere in or around your body where it feels a little more stable or a little more spacious?
Hmm.
We want that little bit more. Doesn't have to be the full thing. And
Yeah.
if they can't sense it at all, that's really important information.
Hmm.
You also could lead them through different practices to get that feeling coming up in the body. So you might have them press their feet into the ground and then release, press and release. And then you can start to bring in that proprioception and interoception. What does the ground beneath you feel like? Because the ground is so stable, it's always wanting to support us. What does that feel like in your body? We can approach it that way. There's certain shapes we can make with our body that tend to bring safety.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with pretzel posture?
No.
Do you want to do it with me?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I'll try to say it clearly so people listening can hear. So you can bring your arms in front, and then you'll turn your thumbs in and down. And then you'll cross your dominant over non-dominant. So whichever you write or throw a ball with, and you'll interlace. And then you can bend your elbows and sweep your hands towards your belly button up to your chest. So we're going for comfort. If this is uncomfortable, you could loosen the grip, tap opposite shoulders or opposite thighs. And so what this does is it crosses and touches opposites of the body. So within the body, that allows us to come into the neocortex, the place where we have conscious choice. And it allows the hemispheres of the brain to be in communication. So if we feel really anxious, it's like a fireworks show being set off all at the same time.
Hmm.
Cross and touch opposites. One side speaks, the other side listens. So I often like to share this one with clients and then have them breathe slowly and smoothly in through the nose and out through the mouth.
Hmm.
This tends to bring that resourcing in. And people can use it when they're feeling overwhelmed, overstimulated, in session, out of session, to bring them back into the window of tolerance. So now they're building those resources. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think about those, like I think about also like the butterfly, like the shoulder taps,
Yes.
which you just kind of alluded to as an option. Um, same mechanism, right?
Mechanism. Mm-hmm. And we are trying to find what's the best fit for that person. There's
Hmm.
some people who have had experiences where slowing down has felt really unsafe.
Hmm.
And so we might need them to shake in their bodies first. So instead of feeding the maybe fearful thoughts with more thoughts, let's just go right to the body. It's a
Hmm.
shake, meet that heightened energy, and then it might be more available to do the butterfly taps.
Hmm.
Better fit. So we're really expanding their toolkit and their resources. Mhm.
I think about those moments when anybody gets overwhelmed and just having something simple that you can do like that instead of being like, well, I guess I just have to hold on to this until my therapy appointment on Tuesday or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I find it to be really empowering for people. We want to teach them how to fish instead of giving them a fish over and over.
Hmm.
Another aspect of the somatic work that I love is it's connecting people in their bodies and giving them these tools that they can use right away.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm thinking about how for the other fellow bobbleheads out there, um, how so many of us seek out like cognitive based counseling, like the top down stuff, because that's how we're already functioning in the world.
Yeah.
I'm curious how your clients who are typically more in their head sink in to somatic therapy, if it's different from the way that your more body-based people do, or if it ends up being about the same.
It is very different. hmm Um, you know, people who tend to work with me have a curiosity about somatic work. So that gives me a little bit more invitation um,
Hmm.
to do the somatic work. Um, so the people who, you know, maybe they're like, I know I'm in a body, but it kind of just feels like a meat suit, like it's or a robot or a machine, and it's here to fulfill the agenda of my cognition.
Hmm.
Um, we really work with that timer is really helpful for those people. The people who like are really in their bodies and love the somatic work already, we can hang out there for as long as the process needs to unwind and unfold. And it's going to be slower than if we're talking because the body communicates more slowly than the thinking mind. And so for people who hang out in their thinking minds, there does tend to be a faster pace. So saying to them, okay, we're just going to go in can be overwhelming in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can say, how long do you want here? And then we build up over time. Maybe it's 2 minutes and we're just offering, can your attention come from your head to your feet? Because that's a long journey.
Hmm.
Yeah. Totally opposite end of the body. We might do a body scan or follow where's the breath? Where are those places that feel more spacious or more stable? So we're doing the same thing essentially. We're creating a map, but it's more bite-sized pieces. We're really meeting that person where they are.
Hmm.
It's still about the relationship. It's just another way to be in relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, because the relationship is inherent to have anybody close their eyes and like be in their bodies in front of you. Like that's you've there's got to be a certain amount of safety to even start that process.
Mhm. And sometimes I see that in the therapy world, we get really excited about different modalities and different approaches, and they're
Hmm.
really exciting. And sometimes we forget that what we're doing is being in a relationship. That's always the most important. So we never want to impose a modality onto somebody because we've lost that safety. So
Hmm.
I am very biased. I freaking love the somatic work and where the intersection of physical and emotional anatomy is. It's here to serve the people in front of us.
Hmm. I'm curious if you show up, if you build that rapport differently as a somatic therapist than you would if you were, say, a cognitive behavioral therapist or something top down. Like, how do you build rapport safety differently as a bottom up therapist?
Hmm. I am in part speaking from theory since I'm not a cognitive behavioral therapist,
Hmm.
but there is a lot of that rapport building within the body because
Hmm.
systems do co-regulate. So somebody is going to feel that safety, whether they're aware of it or not, if my nervous system is regulated and grounded.
Hmm.
Mhm. Um, through how I have my body in session or the pace that I talk or the tone that I have. So perhaps, I don't know if this is true, a cognitive behavioral therapist might be more focused on the words, whereas I love words as well. And I'm really aware of how I'm sharing it. And
Hmm.
when I speak, I'm not just speaking to their thoughts. You know, I'm also a licensed body worker.
Hmm.
And one thing that I learned is, you know, when you're touching, you're wooing somebody's nervous system into relaxation so that those tensions can soften and unwind. And so when I'm working with someone, when I'm speaking, I'm speaking with their nervous system as well. Their body's still in their room. The body is listening as well. So I wonder how we show up differently. But what I do here and what I'm saying is that there's an awareness of we're speaking not only with the thoughts, but we're speaking with the body and all that's being held in the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your question?
Yeah, I think it did. I'm thinking about as a top-down trained therapist who has appreciated somatic work as a client, like I notice the very obvious things, like the bouncing foot. I might not notice how somebody's maybe protecting their shoulder or their heart a little bit in the way that somebody who is really looking for that might. Though now after this conversation, I'll be noticing. But just thinking about how our training is different. And so then we pay attention to the different things. Yeah.
I like that way of wording it. What
Mhm.
paying attention to.
Yeah. And that's what we follow in everything, right? Like in life, what we pay attention to is what follows.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Mhm.
hmm. So I'm thinking about the nervous system. We talked about like butterfly taps. We talked about pretzel, what was it? Pretzel pose?
Pretzel posture.
Pretzel posture.
Mhm.
Are there some other practices that therapists can implement either for ourselves, because we're going to need it sometimes too, but also for our clients that help increase awareness of those intersections with mind and body?
Mhm. Um, we've gone at it in somewhat of a gentle way with the butterfly taps and pretzel posture.
Mhm,
Breathing can be very helpful. Sometimes it is triggering for people to come to their breath. So
mhm,
you want to make sure you're meeting the client where they are. Um, you also can come to it in a more physical way um, for both therapists and clients of different self-massage techniques. And that can awaken people's awareness to, whoa, I had no idea there was so much tension in my traps. It's great between sessions too. A lot of us sit, which
mhm.
automatically can put us in that rounded forward posture.
Yeah,
Do we want to do some self massage?
sure. I'm not going to turn it down.
So I mentioned the upper traps. This is this upper shoulder area tends to be an area where if somebody that you like comes over and gives you a massage, that's where they go and it feels so good. So you can access that muscle by bringing your opposite hand in a really gentle crab pincher to the
Mhm,
top of the shoulder and then shrug your shoulder up a little bit and you'll find the muscle.
mhm,
And then right at the edge, it's like you're shining a coin. And you'll go, this top of the muscle weaves into the top of the shoulder, actually weaves up the neck and into the back of the head as well. So
mhm,
follow that up. And if you find a point where there's a lot of sensation, you might squeeze in a little bit and breathe. You're welcome to breathe in through your nose and see if your belly wants to fill. And then you can purse your lips and slowly exhale. And then when you're ready, you might release and can notice through movement or stillness any shifts that happened.
mhm. Feels really different from the other shoulder. And that wasn't very long.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You want to do the other side while we talk?
Yeah, because otherwise I'm going to be wonky all day.
Me too.
It'll be awful.
So as you're doing this, we're not only building a map for ourselves and that person. As therapists, it's like, whoa, my shoulders were really up during that session. Then we get to do the work that a lot of us love, which is like, what was coming up for me?
Mhm.
Do I have any transference, counter transference going on? What are my shoulders telling me?
I'm guessing this would be a lot more clinically beneficial and personally beneficial than scrolling Instagram in between sessions.
Sometimes the Instagram scroll is very beneficial.
It's true.
But,
It's true.
yeah. We're also teaching people in terms of the nervous system or polyvagal theory, how to play that edge of the window of tolerance. I find a sensation, goes right up to the back of my head. I breathe through it slowly. I'm not pushing myself too far. I'm not underwhelmed, just breathing through that edge.
I think about tolerance with that, right? Like being able to tolerate discomfort that's not going to hurt you, that is for your greater good, and how that relates to tolerating difficult emotions. It's
Yeah.
just like a little reminder that you can tolerate.
Yeah. And I love the word tolerance because it points to so much of like, we're making what feels like the unknown more known
Mm-hmm.
time. And we're doing it in this tangible playground or laboratory of our bodies that's also working with our nervous system at the same time, which is
Mm-hmm.
layer in that tolerance or tolerating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are some other things we can do, like self-massage?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I realize there's a part of me that's coming at this so cognitively. I'm just like, let me know all the things. I want to learn all the things.
I
But
so
yeah, yeah. What are some other things we can do that somebody who's not trained somatically can have access to responsibly? And I'm going to have a follow-up question around like, is there anything that would be an irresponsible way of trying to tap into somatic work if you're not trained?
let's do the massage and stretch first.
Okay.
So for a lot of people, especially people who have that strength of being in thoughts and cognition, the front of the neck tends to get tight.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to feel it in the back of the neck, and so we keep stretching what's already overstretched.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can come to the collarbones,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll place your hands underneath on the rib cage side. And then you can sink your hands into the tissue and tug down slightly towards your hips, and then reach your head gently back and at an angle. You're trying to find a pull or sensation across the front of the neck. You might stay here and breathe. Or if you want to get a little bit more of sensation, you can jut your chin forward. You can move a little bit side to side. You feeling it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm thinking about how the massage therapist I worked with for a long time was always going really intensely on my right shoulder. And I was always like, but it's my left shoulder that hurts. And she's like, yeah, your right shoulder's pulling your left shoulder. That's why. And it's the same thing you're talking about of like how often we do squeeze the back of our neck when it is the front, which I'm going to need to now like even out. The front that's really causing the pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see that with our clients and in ourselves of I have this symptom. I'm just going to go into the symptom. But the symptom is just that blossoming of the roots that are underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that is in our bodies as well.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we do that. And so I think about, my clients who have eating disorders, right? Like the symptom for them is that they can't seem to get happy with the way their body looks, but that's never what's actually happening.
Yes. Yeah. It's what gets you in the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we had some shoulders, neck. We can do a little bit of jaw.
Okay.
Go from the outside and just kind of. So there's this muscle. We're not pressing teeth. on the side of the face,
So kind
then,
of like by the ears is where she's pointing for those listening.
but in front. So we're not on the back of the jaw, we're right on the side of the face.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of tiptoe in with your fingers. And this is actually the strongest muscle in the body per square centimeter.
Hmm.
So if you find a place where there's sensation, you could stay there and you could open and close your jaw slightly. So we're also with this work teaching people how to follow sensation for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing that locus of control back inside. And honestly, my favorite way to release the jaw is I keep a box of rubber gloves in,
Mm-hmm.
and I take it on car trips too. And then you can use the rubber glove to go inside your mouth. And with your index or middle finger, you can access that muscle from the inside
Mm-hmm.
down. And I'll use that with clients sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes with the people who are a little more cognitive, we don't even have to do the more stuff that can feel woo-woo to people of like, what's the color? What's the sensation? I have my yoga voice. Well, it's
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, you are feeling pain in your jaw. Do we want to unwind that right now? Sounds really
Mm-hmm.
painful. And then there's a light bulb that can go off. Of,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, I feel so different. Wow, that stress I came in with, I I, I don't feel it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. How's your jaw feeling?
My jaw's feeling good right now. I'm thinking about it used to be really rough, like so jacked up all the time. I around COVID, I bit through two different night guards. It was really bad. I ended up having to go see a TMJ specialist. And they put me on antidepressants to see if that would help. I mean, they were really trying, but it turns out I had been clenching my jaw so much throughout my life. When they took x-rays, I had broken my jaw on one side and never knew it.
Wow.
And the other side had dislocated. And so like I still can dislocate this side if I'm not careful. But hearing that, I was like, it is time to figure something out. This is bad. Um, and
Your
so yeah,
body's so resilient.
yeah,
The jaw was broken and it
yeah,
just kept working for you.
yeah. And I just kept thinking I'd heard it, or it was sore from clenching at night all the time.
Hey, what?
So it was a good wake up call for me of like, okay, this is one of the primary ways stress manifests in my body, and I need to shift my relationship with my life so that it's less stressful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Body's going to show. And that did remind me, I mean, we've been working a lot from a muscular perspective today.
Hmm.
Our bodies, I mean, it goes really deep in there. We have organs, ligaments holding the organs, um, membranes within our cranium and skull that can
Hmm.
pull on the jaw. During COVID, a lot of people's skull bones were compressing on nerves,
Hmm.
and that was causing a lot of different long-term symptoms
Hmm. Yeah.
into our mental and emotional health. So it's also, you would just led us right back to your other question. I love when
Right. Hmm.
doing things in a way that's ethical.
Hmm.
If people have something happening in their bodies that your clinical recommendation is it would really help to address it, you can refer to somebody and work with somebody who either is somatic or maybe is a body worker who has the understanding of mental health or is trauma. Craniosacral therapy is fantastic because everybody's fully clothed. It's
Hmm.
really gentle touch that allows us to listen in really deeply into the body
Hmm.
in a way that people can integrate. Esalen massage is great for trauma and mental health. It's wooing the nervous system, those long strokes. And every Esalen massage therapist I've worked with asks on their intake, do you or have you had PTSD?
Mhm.
So having body workers who understand that aspect of our being is really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that question of ethics, I feel like ties to, as social worker, that social worker code of conduct where you want to be operating within your competence and
Mhm.
competency. So if you have that feeling of like, man, this is in session, like I don't feel grounded, um, that's okay. We get to experiment, but also it might be a sign of like I could use some mentorship or some supervision or
Mhm.
training or reading. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amazing. Is there anything else that you wish the therapists listening knew about the mind, body, emotion intersections
Mm.
before we go?
Oh, I've loved this conversation. I
Me
feel
too.
what else do I wish therapists knew? I think you and I, when we talked on our call before this, we were talking about psychosomatic, that word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and how there has been a lot of stigma attached to it. And people have also experienced trauma within the medical system of having really painful symptoms and being dismissed because tests don't show it. Or maybe going back to that question about ethics or competence, it's not within their what they've been trained in or have expertise in. Um, so I would love therapists to know it's all valid, it's all true, it's here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so if we can collaborate more and get curious together, we really can help a lot of people. And we as therapists deserve that as well. I mean, we're working so hard. We are going into the trenches with people, into places that they haven't shared with anybody else. So, you who are listening, you get to do this work too. You get to feel good in your body and you get to feel safe in your body too.
I love
Mhm.
that. Yeah. And I think about how if everybody can agree that sometimes we hold tension in our shoulders, then that means everybody's experienced a psychosomatic symptom.
Yeah.
Like
And
it's not a shameful thing and it's not bullshit. It just is.
it just is. I love it's just the nature of things.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just this is how we're designed. This is how we operate.
Yeah.
And we get to empower people and ourselves of, okay, if this is how it is, how do I go about it? What do I want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we talked.
Me too. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Yay. Good. I hope that broadened your clinical horizons. Head over to notboringces.com to get your CE credit. Want to have a not boring conversation with me about your clinical area of expertise? You can apply there too. If you like this conversation, leave us a 5-star review, tell a friend, and be sure to subscribe for future conversations.